Look at any painting made before the 1800s. Go ahead. Think of one. The Mona Lisa, any royal portrait. A Renaissance nobleman staring back at you across 5 centuries. Now notice something. Nobody is smiling. Not a grin. Not a smirk. Not even a hint that these people ever laughed at something, loved someone, or felt joy in their entire lives. They stare at you cold, flat, unmoved, like they're sitting through the world's most boring meeting and have been doing so for 500 years. And you've probably just accepted that, filed it away as that is just how old paintings look. But here is the thing. These were real people. They had families. They told jokes. They fell in love. They had favorite foods and people who made them laugh until they cried. So why in every single portrait, across every country, across centuries, did they refuse to smile? The answer isn't what you think, and once you hear it, you will never look at an old painting the same way again. The teeth problem. Let's start with the reason most people assume, and it is actually partially true. Dental care before the modern era was, to put it kindly, a nightmare. There were no toothbrushes until the late 1700s, no toothpaste, no fluoride, no dentists in the way we understand them today, just barbers who would pull your tooth out with pliers if it hurt badly enough. Sugar was becoming widely available across Europe from the 1500s onward, and it was destroying people's mouths. Tooth decay, blackened teeth, missing teeth, this wasn't rare. This was normal. So yes, many people simply didn't want their teeth on display for eternity. But here is why this explanation alone doesn't hold up. Rich people, the ones who commissioned these portraits, had access to better care than anyone. Kings, queens, nobles, wealthy merchants. These were the people sitting for paintings. And they still didn't smile, so something else was going on. Smiling was for fools. This is where history gets genuinely fascinating. In medieval and Renaissance Europe, smiling in public genuinely, openly smiling was considered a sign of low social status. Peasants smiled. Drunks smiled. Madmen smiled serious. Respectable, powerful people did not. There was actually a Latin phrase used across European courts, rises abundant in ore stultorum, which roughly translates to, laughter is abundant in the mouths of fools. Read that again, laughter is for fools. This wasn't casual opinion. This was the dominant social philosophy of the era. To smile was to signal that you lacked self-control, that you were ruled by emotion, that you were not to be taken seriously. And if you were a king, a duke, or a powerful merchant, paying a painter a small fortune to capture your legacy for eternity, the last thing you wanted was to look like a fool. You wanted to look powerful. So you straightened your spine, you set your jaw, you fixed your eyes somewhere slightly past the painter's shoulder, and you held that expression for hours, sometimes days, while the portrait was completed. Seriousness wasn't just preferred, it was performed. The sitting problem, but here is a layer that almost nobody talks about. Painting a portrait wasn't like taking a photograph. You couldn't just click a button and freeze a moment in time. A proper portrait required multiple sittings, sometimes stretching across days, weeks, even months. Now try holding a natural smile for 6 hours. Go ahead, try it right now. Within 30 seconds it looks deranged. Within a minute it becomes physically painful. Within an hour you'd look less like a noble lord and more like someone who had genuinely lost their mind. A neutral, composed expression wasn't just a social choice, it was the only practical option. It was the one human expression that could be held consistently across dozens of sessions without turning the subject into a grimacing nightmare. The technology of the era literally enforced seriousness. The twist now here is where everything flips, because smiling portraits did exist. They just weren't for the powerful. Painters like Frans Hals in the 1600s captured laughing fishermen, grinning children, gleeful drunks in taverns, teeth showing, eyes creased, full joy on their faces. And these paintings were considered charming curiosities, novelties, something you'd find interesting. The way you find a street performer interesting but never something you'd hang in your royal hall. Joy was documented, it just wasn't dignified. And then the photograph arrived, suddenly capturing a moment took seconds instead of months. You didn't need to hold any expression, and slowly, almost immediately, people started smiling in photographs. Because for the first time in history, a smile didn't need to last. So those cold, flat, unsmiling faces staring at you across centuries, they weren't miserable, they weren't joyless, they weren't emotionally dead. They were performing power in the only language their era understood. They were holding a 6-hour expression. They were refusing to look like fools in front of history, and in a strange way it worked. Because 500 years later, you still remember their faces. Can you say the same about your last smile?